Prepare for takeoff, please.
It's the Shipping Pod. Hello and welcome to the Shipping Pod. I am your host, Tim Dooner, here with nobody. It's just me today, flying solo. At the 11th hour and 59th minute, something came up with Ryan, and the show must go on. So I'll see what I can do here alone, and hopefully try not to screw up too bad. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/theshippingpod. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, I'm going to recommend Go the F to Sleep. My boys have been, I don't know. Ronan, he's, my son is 2. He's kind of been in the terrible 2 phase now. And Sebastian, he's 3 months old, so, he's still crying through the night a bit. So we've been up late rocking the babies a bit. So this one's cathartic for me. Anybody at home with kids probably can relate. Go the F to Sleep. It's narrated by Samuel L. Jackson. And again, you can download that for free if you go to audibletrial.com/theshippingpod. Speaking of Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Carson and him got into a bit of a row this week. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson has been taking a lot of heat over the past, 24 hours or so for these comments. That's what America is about, a land of dreams and opportunity. There were other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder, for less. Samuel L. Jackson saw these comments and tweeted out, "Okay, Ben Carson, I can't. Immigrants in the bottom of slave ships? Look out for them, please." And there's a hashtag here. It's pretty great. Not going to read it out loud, but it's kind of a variant of, Uncle Tom. If you check out Samuel L. Jackson's timeline, you can read that. Speaking of slaves and immigrants, I have been experiencing a bit of the Bader Meinhof phenomenon ever since we did the human trafficking show. If you recall last week, when I was trying to think of a movie that involved human trafficking, the only thing that really came to mind was Taken. Well, this week alone, I've seen no less than 2 movies and 1 documentary that was dealing with human trafficking, and it's not that I sought them out, they just happened to, 2 of them were on Netflix. One of them was called Reclaim. It was about a family who wanted to adopt a kid, and there was some scam going on. The other one was very similar with Kim Basinger. It wasn't as good though. Reclaim was a little bit better. I don't know. Neither were that great. But what was really just a fantastic documentary, and I didn't know what to expect. I'd never heard anything about this one before, was Tickled. It's an HBO Films documentary, and it's about the world of competitive tickling. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I didn't even know there was a world of competitive tickling that existed. But apparently there is, and it employs there's a rich guy in New York who produces these tickling videos and these tickling events, and he goes and he reaches out to young men that are between the ages of 18 and 25, most of which are competitive athletes, but on the cusp. The lacrosse players, arena league football, basically, smaller level athletes that can be plied away to Los Angeles to film one of these videos for a relatively small sum of money. And so what this guy does is he goes and he'll kind of scour message boards online, and if he sees, an athlete he's interested, or a boy or a young man he's interested that he wants to film, he'll see them talking about Radiohead or Metallica or whomever, and he'll send them, tickets to the show. If they're talking about a hoverboard, he'll send them a hoverboard, and he'll keep sending them gifts to get their attention until they reply back to him. And when they do, he'll offer them $1,500 to fly down to Los Angeles, all expenses paid, to get tickled. And most of these guys, the first time, the ones they were interviewing, they would just think, okay, how bad can this be? I just go down, I get tickled. It can't be that strange. But then when they get there, they're in this white room tied down to it's not a massage table, but it's a table with restraints on it that that keep you down. And it'll start off with like a guy tickling him under the armpit, and then another guy will come in the room and start tickling his feet, and then someone will start tickling his hands, and another guy will come in and start tickling his buttocks. Now, mind you, everybody's clothed in this, so it's not naked sexual. It's just kind of weird, and all of the young men, the first timers, you can kind of see the look on their face, like, what in God's name did I get myself into? But they're already tied up, and they all seem to go through with it. And then here's the thing: if they have second thoughts about it when they get back to wherever they came from, one of the kids they're following, he contacted the production company and this guy who had originally contacted him. He said, "You know what? I don't want to be involved in this anymore. Can you please take down my video?" And the guy is such a sociopath. He went crazy. He took the video, and instead of just having it on this paid site for, I guess, who watches these videos are tickle fetishists? I'm not sure. Again, like, this world of tickling is all new to me, but he'll go and he'll put all of the videos up on YouTube, and he'll send it to their employers and their college, and if their girlfriend, he will dox, the hell out of these kids and get to anybody close to him. They'll send these tickling videos, and naturally, the kids are kind of horrified because it's really hard to explain that you're in a tickling video. And again, on the surface, it doesn't seem, I guess, that strange, but when you watch the video, it's definitely something that I don't think you'd really want out there. And I mean, it's a looser definition, but this definitely falls under the auspice of human trafficking. And definitely one of the weirder versions of human trafficking. But I highly recommend that one. Check out Tickled if you get a chance. It's eye-opening, it's well narrated, it's well told, and it's just wow, mind-blowing. Highly recommended. What else is going on before we get into the news? Usually we'd have a bit more banter if I wasn't just talking to myself, because we're usually in the cast at a dually, and I have my I got my wingman, I got my partner in crime across from me to bounce things off of, but all I got today to bounce off of is my walls. We're not in the cast at a dually. I'm in the dungeon of Dooner today, all alone, so you guys keep me company. Other piece of news, this is just Boston related, but I don't know if you guys know this, but the Sitco sign is in trouble by Fenway. The rent, a new developer came in, developer from New York. I believe they're called Beal. I'm not sure. I don't even want to advertise them. How dare these guys come in here? Right? So they came in here, they bought the building, and the rent originally from the previous landlord owners to Sitco was negotiated at $250,000 a year to have the sign on top of the building. An iconic symbol of Boston. I don't think anybody relates the Sitco sign to gas. To them it says, Fenway, it says Boston, it says Red Sox way more than it says Sitco gas. We don't even really have any Sitco stations around here that I can think of. Maybe we do. I don't seem to notice them though. But anyways, either way, this guy wants to raise the rent from $250,000 to $2.5 million a year. Sounds crazy to me. I don't know. Maybe Mayor Marty can step in and make that a landmark, right? Get in there. Get in there and do it. Oh, there is one other thing. Saturday morning, I woke up and, opened up my Twitter, and our good friend, our President Donald Trump, he went on a tweeting tirade about President Obama, I guess, wiretapping the Oval, not the Oval Office, they're wiretapping Trump Towers, I suppose. That was his claim. And he's saying it's worse than Watergate. And he rifled off about 6 tweets in a row that all kind of stated the same thing. Horrible, this is worse than Nixon, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm just thinking, like, does this guy because it was at 7 in the morning that he was sending these out. So, I'm picturing it like, he gets out of bed and he's hearing a Spicy or Kellyanne Conway, stirring in the hallways, and he just ducks into the royal throne over there, doing his morning BM, just firing off these tweets. And if you think, it's maybe the one chance he can get to get a little privacy is to, lock that bathroom door, sit on the heated toilet seat. I mean, he's got to definitely have a heated seat, right? And I just picture him sitting there, just rifling these things off. And no one can really bother him because, this is a 267-pound man, at least according to his last physical. And, it's a Saturday morning. He might have been out at a gala dinner the night before. May have had, a little too much to eat. I know he doesn't drink, but, he might have had some coffee, some cheesecake. He might have had a taco salad for lunch. So it's believable that a guy his size, could be in the toilet for, 30 minutes or so. I'd buy it. I wouldn't want to go check on it. Not without a mask on. But anyways, this is what he does. And it's really, maybe I shouldn't think this way, but I'm just picturing Donald Trump on the toilet every time I read his tweets. I'm like, this guy is definitely sitting down on a heated throne. And, something did kind of come of this just today. WikiLeaks put out some new information regarding surveillance. And that was the Vault 7 release, which had to do with CIA, the scope of CIA spying, I guess. And, we heard about this with the NSA before the last time this information came out. And I guess everyone kind of assumed, I guess now, we're of that age that your, Amazon Echo is recording what you say, and your iPhone is capable of recording what you say, and maybe your smartphone. And we've heard of baby monitors getting hacked and all of these things. And, what is it that they do exactly with this data? Well, the really interesting thing, though, about this particular release isn't the fact that the CIA is doing it or has these tools. It's the fact that in this release, it basically states that they've lost control of these tools. So, they're out there for someone who knows how to utilize them. They would know how to, I guess, get into anyone's phone, anything, I guess, that's tethered to the internet. They could do that. And that's scary stuff. I haven't read through the whole thing yet, so I don't want to speak too much on it. But, it's a fascinating thing. It coincides with this Obama thing. I have no idea what Trump's talking about. There's no evidence that Trump Tower was bugged. I guess by definition, if everything is bugged, then Trump Tower was bugged. But does that mean Obama or the CIA were expressly using this information to fuel campaign knowledge? I don't know. All the releases are out, and again, haven't gone through the documents. But speaking of Donald Trump, let's get into the Trump date. President Trump wants to close the trade deficit. We've talked about that multiple times on here. That deficit rose to 9.6% in January, to the highest levels since 2012. In his speech last week, Donald Trump said, "I believe strongly in free trade, but it has to be fair trade." Well, as of right now, there's a $48.5 billion gap between U.S. imports and exports. The good news is that exports are up 0.9% from December to January. However, the deficit rose because imports are up as well, so it's offsetting that. It's not necessarily a bad thing in the sense that, the strength of the dollar is going to offset exports anyway quite a bit, and it's going to mean that the strength of our economy, if you can get goods cheaper overseas, that the economy has been built that way for so long that it's hard to really look at it any other way. Economists say automation will negate any gains made by onshoring manufacturing. However, that's a little ridiculous as key trade sectors still employ, several million people in the United States in goods that can't be fully automated, are still going to require workers, such as automotive, machinery, semiconductor. These are some of our biggest industries that we are exporting. And these goods, too, they represent a large portion of the deficit. So knowing that automation will take these jobs away, it could also be argued that it's as important as ever to bring this manufacturing back to actually offset what automation is going to do, because automation is going to take some of those millions of jobs away that are here. Not all of them, but some of them. But if we bring some manufacturing back, it could offset that. So I don't think Trump is fully wrong there. The thing that it comes back to are the repercussions of tariffs and what this could do to affect the global economy. If he sticks to his guns and he really goes to a trade war with China, this is the world's two biggest economies facing off. Stocks are going to suffer. There's at the very least going to be growing pains. And is the net gain worth it? Apparently we're going to find out. That's really it on the Trump date. We had that flurry of tweets about the spying and the trade deficit talk. Nothing really has moved forward since then. No trade deals have gone through that I'm aware of. We'll keep those monitored and we'll let you know as they go. Speaking of automation, in the news this week, I don't know if you've seen the movie Logan, but self-driving trucks play a part in that one. That particular film is set in 2029, but it looks like Logan is not just predicting the future. Self-driving trucks are becoming a reality, and there are multiple companies that just this week have talked about automation. Uber's driverless truck division Odo, Embark, Starsky Robotics, and Drive.ai just gave details on their forays into automation. Otto was founded by Anthony Lewandowski, who was responsible for developing Google's tech. It was purchased by Uber for $680 million last year. This is causing a huge conflict, though, because Google and their driverless car division, Waymo, is suing Uber now and Otto, accusing them of stealing the technology and the R&D that was developed by Google when Anthony Lewandowski was over there. And that battle is paving the way for these other companies. While they fight it out, startups are pushing forward. Embark has just been approved to test trucks on public roads in Nevada and close courses in California. Bay Area startup Starsky wants to begin pulling live loads, income-bearing live loads, with a driver in the truck to monitor the truck's movement, and they want to pilot this in Michigan, Nevada, and Florida. Mountain View, California-based Drive.ai is testing last-mile local deliveries in California. This is not only in the US. Daimler has 18-wheelers on public roads already in Germany. It's going to be interesting where this goes. This is definitely going to change and disrupt the supply chain, especially on the, definitely on the final mile end. What's interesting about this is if we look back at that leak that just came out today, and if there are all these backdoors into these computers and hacking is becoming such a challenge and maybe something that we can't control, how long is it until someone seizes control of these trucks for nefarious means, be it piracy or be it terrorism? We mentioned that Germany has these on public roads. We saw a terrorist take a truck and drive it through a market there. In a couple years, they're not going to need that driver because they can get behind a computer and potentially seize control of these trucks. I'm not trying to bring the fear of God into this, but it's not rise of the machines here. It's not automation necessarily becoming self-aware so much as it's old Adam in the Garden of Eden here eating the forbidden fruit. It's mankind himself that could take these platforms and use them for nefarious means. It's something that we hope that they get a handle on, though, because it goes without saying, this is all being pushed forward. When you have big players like Uber and you have Google and you have these startups all trying to get into the automation game, especially for service industry, for taxis, for deliveries, final mile, and now for long-haul trucking, as well as for the consumer level, driverless cars. In Tesla, you're already seeing autopilot within those cars. It's going to be such a vastly different world 5-10 years from now. And I just hope the security's there. Maersk and IBM are in the news. They're teaming up on a blockchain solution, which is a technology platform aimed at digitizing and standardizing shipping docks along the supply chain. The solution will manage and track the paper trail along the supply chain from end to end, which will increase transparency and ensure all parties are pulling the same data. An added benefit of this is combating fraud as well, as no one party can alter or append docs without consensus from the network. Now that's interesting, because is this going to slow things down? I guess, speeding them up. Consensus by the network. I'm not sure exactly what process is going. It's not defined here what they mean by consensus of the network. So who is going to have to come in? I just picture, especially from my brokerage days, being there trying to clear a shipment at the last minute and just within this blockchain system, something is just wrong or something's shorted and I got to change my docs for customs, but I don't have the information that I need, or I need someone to go in this computer and change it at some point. Sounds a bit like dealing with the airlines when you're talking about putting cargo counts in AMS and when there's split shipments. Man, back in my FDA fish days, I dealt with quite a few of those. But you know what? According to them, it could save the industry billions across the board. It is just for ocean, but 90% of goods are moved that way. This pilot is approved by CBP, so I like that. I like it. I like that. I mean, I haven't seen it in action, but I do. I mean, yeah, the consensus from the network thing does seem like it could throw some hiccups or wrenches in there, but in concept, I do like the idea of this transparency of documents, and along the supply chain, you're able to see the full movement of the cargo. Although, I don't know if shippers, I don't know how on board they're going to be with that. They may not want to see all of the partners within the move that have such access to the shipment. In one of the examples that they used here, talking about the Maersk and IBM blockchain, was a shipment that had touched 30 different hands. So, it went from the design team and the purchasing team at the shipper. He contacts the factory, it goes through them, it goes to the broker overseas, it goes to the trucker overseas, it goes to the port, it goes to the carrier, it goes to the port in the country of destination, it goes to a trucker, it goes to a broker. So there is a lot of hands on here. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if shippers want those documents looked at. But it says it could save billions. Again, I mean, this is a press release from Maersk and IBM. Of course, they're going to say that. But CBP is on board, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, I would love to see some standardization amongst documents and an ease of access to them. It could be a good thing. Really excited to see what it actually looks like when it's out there. I'd like to get behind that terminal. Best Buy was in the news. Best Buy reports that demand grew through the holidays, and their e-commerce tools are closing the gap with Amazon. However, inventory shortfalls plague the retailer as they still work to strike a balance between in-store inventory versus online retail. So, a lot of the in-store managers, they don't want to keep a ton of stock on site because that costs quite a bit of money, and that's where they're sort of KPI'd at. And online demand has shifted who they're sending to and where they're sending things to. We mentioned last week JCPenney, who was kind of using their stores, or planned to use their stores, as almost fulfillment centers for retail as well. But for JCPenney, I think that would mean they would have to keep quite a bit more stock on hand. And I think Best Buy is kind of in that growing pains right now. If they're getting the pricing down, they're getting the speed of action down to combat Amazon, they're getting the variety of goods out there to combat Amazon, but it's a different animal. It's a different animal than retail. It's a different animal than brick and mortar. They're striking a balance. I'm a big fan of Amazon. I'm a Prime guy. I'm an Amazon mom. I love their stuff, but you want to see competition in the market. And actually, just interestingly, Amazon opened their brick and mortar location here in Dedham at Legacy Place. I haven't been there yet, but I know a few people who have. They said it's pretty good. If you're a Prime member, you can go in there and get Prime pricing. If they don't have the book you're looking for, they'll ship it to the location or they'll ship it to your house. Their prices, they're not like Borders or Barnes & Nobles where, if a book wasn't a new release, the hardcover would be like $29.99, but you'd look it up on Amazon and the same book, was $17.99 or $12.99. It was a no-brainer to order through Amazon. Amazon is having that pricing in store. That's pretty attractive to not see that markup. I'm excited. Like when I initially heard about the Amazon store, I was like, this is just going to be a bunch of echoes and dots and fires and all the things that Amazon tries to, pimp out to us Prime members all the time. I guess it's not just that. There is a section in the center of the store where you can check out those equipment. There's also Amazon Basics, cables and whatnot. And again, those are at good prices. I don't know. I use their Amazon Basics Lightning cable, and of all the third-party cables that I've used, because I have this conspiracy theory that Apple, when they do the iOS updates, they'll see what the popular third-party manufacturers are, and if they're not Apple certified, they will kill the connection. Because I've had so many third-party cables that just, for some reason, you go to iOS 10.2 and Oh, all of a sudden the cable's no longer working. Well, the Amazon Basic ones are certified by Apple. They haven't been killed by any updates yet. The one I'm running off has, it's 10 feet long. Perfect. Because the one Apple gives you in the box is, way too short. But yeah, they're good cables. I'm a fan. Amazon Basics. Check them out. FoxConn Technology. Speaking of Apple, they were in the news before for making iPhones. I believe it was bad news that I think they're the ones that had the nets out, right? So people couldn't jump from their workstations to their death. Well, and not laughing. I mean, it's just like, what do you even say there? I've never been in a Foxconn factory, and I'm not sure what goes on behind the scenes there, but they're a huge player in the Chinese market. They make flat panel screens and electronics for a ton of different companies. They just opened a new They just opened a new $8.8 billion flat panel screen factory in Guangzhou. Is that right? Yeah, it is. $8.8 billion factory. Wow. How big must that thing be? I mean, I guess the workers live there, so there's accommodations on site for workers and managers, but I want to see what an $8.8 billion factory looks like. This says USD. It's not UN or anything. It's apparently US dollars. I gotta Google that. I'm gonna look that one up. Well, anyways, they have been in talks about opening factories in the US. However, their chairman, Terry Gao, said he needs the US to show they're a serious partner. And he implores states that want Foxconn, if they want Foxconn to bring a factory to the United States, he wants them to come to China and learn how Foxconn does business. Which, is interesting. Again, they were in the news for putting out nets so workers can jump to their death. That's definitely not going to fly, with OSHA over here. I mean, OSHA might like the nets because they don't want someone to get hurt, but the environment that I have never been inside a Foxconn factory. I have no idea what goes on in there. I've read some stories and whatnot, but the states are going to go there, I guess, look and see how they do business. Is that how they do business? Is that something that can even fly in the US? And if so, to what standard? To what working standards? Foxconn too, well, they're waiting for that to happen. Their initiative right now is that they want to be more like Samsung and want to make parts for other companies. They want to make flat panel screens, but they also want to become their own brand. So somewhere down the line, I guess you might be buying a Foxconn made, Foxconn branded. You're already buying the Foxconn made screens. If you have an iPhone, you're probably have something with Foxconn in it, Foxconn components, but they want to make their own, their own TVs. I don't know. I don't know what the brand will be. I don't know if they'll be any good, but I imagine they would. They have a lot of experience in there, and again, they want to pull that Samsung model. They want to start making their own electronics and consumer products. Harley Davidson. They were mentioned during Trump's speech. He had used them kind of an example of a company that has difficulty sending its good overseas. However, I was reading a contradictory report about that this week. Harley Davidson has lost some market share in the United States, but 40% of its sales are outside the US. And this is pretty incredible because some of the countries that they're exporting to put 100% tariff on their goods. Harley has remained nimble overseas by adjusting to demands of the market. To combat trade restrictions in India, they've opened assembly plants, and they've reduced the bike's footprint to match Japanese preferences and noise regulations. So it seems like Harley knows what they're doing, and I think that American culture and Harley is such a strongly defined American brand that it's a big status symbol overseas. So you're going to see people purchase that. When Trump talks about these things, though, he does have a point. If countries are putting 100% tariff on Harley Davidsons, we need a bilateral agreement there where they're either reducing that or, we're putting our own restrictions back on them. It's a little crazy to sort of get balled over that way by other countries we're supposed to be business and trading partners with. But for all Trump says, I don't know. I'm with him on some of these trade things. Not all of them, but some of them. And dealing with companies that are putting 100% tariffs on US-made goods, absolutely something that needs to be looked at. So we'll see how that goes, but Harley-Davidson is overcoming those obstacles as it is right now. I'm sure they would love to have these tariffs reduced anyway to increase their margins and do better business and increase their market share over there. But again, 40% of the business doing well. Hey, McDonald's. McDonald's is going to start testing home delivery in markets in the US and Europe. With the rise of delivery apps like Grubhub and personal assistant apps like Instacart, they're seeing renewed demand for on-demand food and delivery food. They've done some test marketing, they're looking into it, and what they've realized is that 75% of the US population in their top 5 markets live within 3 miles of McDonald's, so the delivery infrastructure is there. What's interesting to me, though, is how is delivery McDonald's going to taste? Because fast food is one of those things that when it touches oxygen, once it gets out of the microwave and it's assembled, each second is so precious in the taste of the Big Mac. After a half an hour, that thing it's not good anymore, and it's not like you can heat it up either. You can't put a McDonald's burger in the microwave and then you can't reheat it. It's you got to slam it down fast. And man, I don't know. Delivery McDonald's. What a world, huh? I guess we'll find out. Maybe they'll come to you by a robot car, automated car. Then somebody will hack it. And, will still be the wrong order, or they won't give you ketchup. Every time you go there and you ask for ketchup, it's like, can I have a lot of ketchup? Yeah, here's 3 packets. If even. They don't like to give ketchup out anymore. Crocs. Crocs are closing 1/3 of stores after their 4th quarter sales fell 10%. That's interesting. Crocs are obviously definitely not a fashionable shoe, but you do see a lot of nurses wear them. And, like my son, he has a pair, obviously not a nurse, but a little kid, and he likes them. They don't look exactly like the Crocs, the traditional Croc, but they're kind of the same material. And I guess that's why nurses like them too, that sort of rubber material. It's breathable. It's really easy to slip on and off. You can, you hose it down or wash it in the sink and sterilize them pretty quickly. It's, they do serve a purpose. They're definitely, they're definitely not high-end fashion. And I think, maybe some of this is the market correcting itself with the 10% in decline in sales. I don't think Crocs are going to go away. They do serve a purpose. This is not a news item, but it's an interesting thing that I came across online. It's a company called Custom Container Builders, and they make pools out of 20s and 40-foot containers. And they're pretty cool looking. I went to the website, I took a look at them, and I think that, especially now that people are doing things like containerized homes and tiny house hunting, and minimalism's a big thing. People are trying to reduce their footprints and be smaller, which is definitely not a bad thing. I don't know if I'd live in one of these tiny homes or a container. I mean, I've been inside a 20, I've been inside a 40, I've been inside a 53-foot trailer. I mean, of course, when I was in the 53-foot trailer and in the 40, I was like removing garments on hanger. It was really odd, in a warehouse. But the clang inside there and the ambient temperature. I mean, they have to insulate these things or something when people are living in them. I have not been in a container home yet, but I'm super interested. I do want to see one. And a lot of times, the container homes, it's not just a 40. They cut up several different containers and connect them and create different living spaces in some cases. And these guys do that. These custom container companies, they're based in Canada. And the container pools, I thought it looked kind of neat. And I was like, man, would I be interested in this? And, I'm not really interested in any pool because, in Massachusetts, you're going to get 30 pool days at best. And even less because you're going to be at work for most of those days. So how often are you really going to get to use this pool? However, I do think that they looked really cool. And, but when I was looking a little more into them, the cost was prohibitive. So the 20-foot pool is $19,000 and the 40-foot is $26,000. That, to put that into perspective, an above ground pool costs between $2,000 and $4,000-ish bucks. And a really nice in-ground pool on the higher end is going to cost you between, $20,000 and $25,000. And that, that's like saltwater too. So you can go and you have better options in this. So that kind of means if you want a custom container pool, you want it because of the look and not necessarily the value savings. Another issue I was seeing with it, because even knowing all that, I was like, these are still pretty cool, man. If I had the money, I would definitely get one of these things. But I was thinking even more about it, and like the 40-foot, for example, it's 9 feet deep, and there's another option to get it 5.5 feet deep, so you can do one or the other. But there's no gradient, so when you go into the 40-foot container, you're in the deep end no matter what end you're in. So it's 40 by 8 feet. You can swim back and forth and everything, but, if you have kids or whatnot, there's no shallow end. There's no wading it. And 5.5, not super deep, but kind of deep. You couldn't have little kids in there. My 2-year-old wouldn't be able to go in there. I don't know. Pools are a liability. If you guys like pools, though, check it out. It's customcontainerbuilders.com. I actually want to do a show on utilities for containers other than shipping, because I'm into it. It's cool. The container homes and even these pools, whatever people are doing at these new utilities, I think it'll be a fun and kind of fascinating, fun show. It'll be on the opposite spectrum of human trafficking, for example. Maybe we can even get these guys on here, one of the guys from customcontainerbuilders.com, and I don't know, he can pitch me on this. He can tell me why a 40-foot container pool is worth $26,000. Now, our topic today, when Ryan was originally supposed to be here, was contract season. We were going to talk about that. As you know, he works for Yang Ming as the sales manager in Boston. So he knows quite a bit of this, and he's going through contract season right now. He's negotiating all his deals with the BCOs. For the carriers, this is a huge time of year. This is kind of when they make their coin. You know how your year is going to be, and it's made or broken during this time period. Contract season usually begins May 1st. Almost always. I wish I had Ryan here to kind of correct me. And I can continue this conversation with him when he's back here. But I'll share a little bit about what I know about contract season from my broker's perspective. So the contracts or signed annual agreements in shipping are not really like anything else in business. I don't want to expose anything here because this is common knowledge. Anybody who's a logistics professional who's dealt on either end knows that these MCQs are barely even worth the paper that they're written on. And it's such a funny thing because there's so much stress involved with this time period, because everybody wants the commitment. Everybody wants the containers. Everybody wants the revenue. We're all trying to bite each other's heads off. We're trying to, get the lowest rate, and it drives it down. These overcapacity issues, it kind of gets, the situation that we're in now. And all of this for what basically amounts to a loose handshake deal that's put to paper. And I say that because there really are no penalties for non-performance. And the thing is, when you get the lower rates mean, for seasoned logistics professionals, lower rates mean there's a greater fear that their cargo is going to be rolled if there's a spike in spot rates. If you get yourself a contracted rate for super low, like $800 or something to the East Coast, and again, Ryan's not here, so I'm not sure if that's a realistic number, but I did hear that tossed around that number, getting contracts to the East Coast for $800. So the fear, though, is that if the spot rate market moves up to, if the big BCO, let's say he's getting $800 for the container, the spot rate market may set itself somewhere around $1,100 or $1,200. But let's say it moves even more than that. Let's say the contract rate moves up to the spots rates move up to $1,600 or $1,800, and they're getting all of these bookings. Well, you have your container for $800, or they can make twice that by putting spot rate containers on there. And suddenly, you find out your container has been rolled or is sitting on the port. And that is, that's the thing that carriers do. And it's a terrible reality of contract season. It's a terrible reality of these contracts. And it's systemic of the fact that these contracts aren't binding. They're there. They're in good faith. The shippers and the carriers do try to honor them as much as possible because it behooves them to maintain these relationships. But, as with all things money, if look, there's no penalty here. And shippers are seeing the spot rate market, because this doesn't just go one way. So this isn't just the carriers who are rolling freight because the spot rate market's doing great. Shippers do it the other way too. So if the spot rate market drops, so let's say you negotiate your rate, and it wouldn't be 800, but let's say it's a higher season, capacity is a problem. So you have a contract rate of $1,200 into the East Coast, but spot rates have just tumbled to 1,000. Well, the BCO and other shippers, they're all of a sudden that MCQ, they're calling up brokers, and they're starting to shop the market, and they're starting to see what kind of rates that they can get. And what starts happening too on these MCQs is they start getting phantom bookings for one, which is when shippers say, "Hey, a shipment's coming through." The carrier makes arrangements to have space for them, and then nothing shows up. MCQ, by the way, not to get ahead of myself, is a minimum quantity agreement. That's all it means. So if you say I'm going to bring you 500 TEUs in the year, the MCQ means that is the minimum amount of containers you'll get. And when the steamship line, the carrier gives you that rate, they say, okay, based on the fact that you're going to give me 500 TEUs, I'm going to give you a contracted rate of $900 or whatever it may be to the East Coast. However, what happens is, because this is a dynamic and flux market and things change throughout the year, is that 20% of shippers do not meet their MCQ according to the JOC. So they go in, they promise quite a bit to the carriers. The carriers mark it down, they give them this rate, but the second, the market shifts to benefit the shipper, they're calling up a broker and doing side business to them through them to get the lower rate. So you're seeing things happen on both ends. If it's the carrier rolling it or the shipper failing to meet the MCQ, the result is the same. It's frustrated parties on both sides because at the end of the day, there's too much dependence on each other to seek any legal recourse. As we've mentioned several times on here, these goods, they're all on the same ships. So there's, and in a shrinking world, Hanjin's gone. There's only so many partners. And every year during contract season, the BCOs want to go out. Well, most of them do. And they want as many carriers involved as possible so they can leverage their freight against the market and get the lowest rate there is. And again, when we get Ryan in here, we'll have him dig a little bit more into this, because this is really kind of his territory. But it's such it's a fascinating thing, and it's always fun to. Well, I don't want to say fun. It's really stressful. It's a super stressful time of the year, especially for guys on like Ryan on his end. The brokers are a little bit more nimble because they are. I wouldn't define myself as just a broker, but in the broker market, you can go out and you're playing and selling the market. And if rates go below contract, it can be a big boon for the brokerage side, but we're also not as tied into just freight. Brokers are able to sell a multitude of different logistics services and 3PL services that can bring up the revenue. If you can't get the freight during the initial contract season, you may be able to get in there in brokerage. And then once you've established that relationship, you can go to the table in the subsequent years working towards those, signing these MCQs and these agreements to bring on the freight and to bring it on that way. Whereas, a lot of the carriers don't have those secondary services or 3PL services to really mitigate this. So, big time year, super interesting. We'll jump into this a little bit more with Ryan. A couple of events. The Boston Seafood Show, that is not this Sunday, next Sunday. I believe that is March 19th. That's at the Boston Convention Center. It's a few days over there. Great event. Kind of everybody who's a player in the game is there. If you wanna move fish or you wanna sell fish, you are gonna show up at the seafood show. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. At least on the Northeast, that's the joint. The other one we got, Connect TNT, April 11th, 3-day event down in lovely Newport, Rhode Island. You can look up details on that event at connect.org. That's connect.org. If you want to reach the Shipping Pod, you can do so at theshippingpod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/theshippingpod. We're on Twitter @theshippingpod. We're on Facebook. We got a page there. It's The Shipping Pod. We have our podcast homepage, which is theshippingpod.libsyn.com. That is theshippingpod.libsyn, LIBSYN.com. And we're also on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Overcast, TuneIn, and everywhere else podcasts are played, except for, I think, iHeartRadio. You have to be around for like 2 months or something to get on iHeartRadio. I'm not sure why we're not exactly on there yet, but that 2-month period, that waiting period, I guess, is about to expire. I think we're like 40 days or so into this thing. I mean, this is episode 8 now, but I think we're like 40, 50 days in, so hopefully we'll be on there. I don't know if you guys are, iHeartRadio listeners, but everybody has their own jam. I hope it wasn't too terrible listening to me pilot this ship on my own this week. Like I said, we'll have Ryan back next week. I think that the topic will be, the topic I hope to do next week is going to be piracy. That's always fun. Sail in the high seas of piracy. From the beginning days of yore to, your Somali pirates, your Captain Phillips, your modern day Jack Sparrow. And on that note, I'm going to pogo stick off on my peg leg for my absent co-host, Ryan Dooley. This is Tim Dooner saying so long from the Children Shipping Pod.
That's what they say.